This is the Real Mom Hub. Keep listening for relatable content. Thanks so much for tuning in. We are going to take a quick break over Christmas and New Year's, and we'll be back with a new episode on January 7th. Please enjoy this episode with our Baba.
You two look so official, big headphones and all.
I know. So professional.
Yeah.
Well, should we dive in? You ready?
Absolutely. That's why I purposely didn't watch anything before this.
You
Now I can go back and listen to them.
You haven't listened to any of the interviews?
No, I didn't want to be tainted.
This is fun. Okay, so now after we record yours, you can go listen to all your daughters.
I will. I definitely
So
will.
fun. It was just so fun. And they're so different, which was like the best part. Yeah.
And you girls will be so different. If someone did this to you later on, all of you will be so different.
Yeah. True. Yeah.
And that's a good thing.
It is a good thing. I feel like teaching, I was drawn to the families where I would have, 2 or 3 of their kids. And I loved it when the kids were so different. Like that just told me that the parents were probably interesting.
Yeah.
Well, to kick us off, today we're joined by our Baba. Yeah, when I hear that word, when I say it, there's so much wrapped up in it. So I just want to briefly contextualize for our listeners. Baba is Bulgarian for grandmother. She is our dad's mom, wife to our beloved grandpa, first generation American and daughter to brave immigrants, mother to our aunties and uncle, matriarch of the family, protector of tradition, feast maker, intrepid traveler, and champion of art, vessel for more energy and verve than any 5 people combined ought to have any right to. She's truly a force of nature, and the titles and accolades could go on for days. But instead of talking about all the crucial roles she's occupied for the people in her life, we're actually just here to hear about her stories today. So thanks for joining us, Baba.
It'll be fun, I think.
I would also like to add, and this isn't a negative, this is a positive quality. Baba is the she's the genesis of our peasant sweating gene. So whenever I'm like, slightly warm and I just start sweating, I fondly think, thank you, Baba.
And it doesn't go away.
Great.
Yep, I'm responsible.
So funny. Okay, so Baba, you are talking to a fresh generation of budding matriarchs. What is something that you hope we cherish in the years to come?
I hope you just cherish being moms and just love your time with your children. Sometimes it'll be frustrating. Sometimes you'll be really ticked off. Sometimes they'll be really ticked off at you. But the bottom line is, it's just, it is the most rewarding job in the world. And I hope that, and I've seen you two in action. You are already wonderful moms, and you're loving your children, and it shows. They are well-loved, happy children. Can't ask for anything more. Yeah, I think, and to take responsibility, and you're doing that too.
Take responsibility for which piece of it? There are so many things that we could take responsibility for.
Well, I think children need guidance. I think they need boundaries. And I don't mean rigid boundaries where you want to accept them for what they are, but when they're doing something that is totally inappropriate, that was a word I used a lot. That is just inappropriate.
Inside and out of the home? Was it
just absolutely.
Catch-all?
I don't ever embarrass the kids outside of the home, but if they're being inappropriate, they have to be told. And it's okay.
I like that word, actually.
Yeah, because it's not a cool thing to be doing. So maybe you should think about not doing it or stop doing it. And hopefully not throw a temper tantrum. And if any mother ever tells you their child never threw a temper tantrum, they either have aphasia or they're lying.
You know what I just saw this morning was a reel of Princess Kate, this reel of her daughter throwing temper tantrums with Princess Kate looking so put together and unfazed and just like picking up this tantruming toddler and just holding her. I'm like, oh, even her kid has
Yeah.
tantrums.
Yes, exactly. Exactly, they do. Yeah. The other thing is to have fun with your kids.
Mhm.
With all the work and all the responsibility, it's still fun. It really is. And I see you doing that too.
They
Yeah.
are fun. So far,
Yeah.
so far, it's been a good run. All 16 months of it for me.
And they change so quickly. They really do.
Yes,
I
it's
remember
wild.
thinking that, oh, this child is the most adorable they could ever possibly be. Then a month later, they're different again. I used to think that this is God's way of saying, eventually you have to let go and they'll be adults and gone.
When did you have that thought? Because I mean, you and Grandpa are just frankly fun, interesting people that I would be honored to be friends with if you were not my grandparents. But it's a similar sentiment that I hear from my aunties, my dad. Like, you are those people, as far as I can tell, for your children, their spouses. The age of the generation doesn't seem to matter to you and Grandpa, which I think is difficult for a lot of adult parents of adults to wrap their head around. When did you have that thought of this is so beautiful? This must be God's way of telling me to let go. I would never have put those two together.
Actually, I think probably when Mark and Katie, the two oldest ones, then I would see it all over again with the other three because they go
Hmm.
through these phases sometimes where they're just so cute and they're happy and they're just so adorable. And you say, oh, okay, next stage. But I
So,
remember thinking of it really young.
well, you were what, 21 when you had dad?
I no 20. Please, I wasn't that young. I was
Well,
20. I'm 22.
really big difference. I remember which intersection I was standing at on my college campus. And I think you called me for my birthday and it hit me like, oh my God, Baba had dad at this age in her life. Are you kidding me?
Insanity. And
Well,
you had just gotten back from Germany too, right?
I got, yes, I was 6.5 months pregnant when we got back.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so you were pregnant in a different country for your when did you get married? How old were you?
20.
Okay,
Yeah.
since we're talking about ages and years and chronology, can we just back up and start at the beginning? I would love to hear about what's
You
up.
started this. That's all
I
I have
know,
to
no,
say.
I know. I was just spitballing. I want to start at the beginning for our listeners a little bit. Baba, could you just give a little summary of your childhood? I know that's a hard thing to ask, but you have
Uh,
such a fascinating background, and I know we're going to be asking you about your mom and dad.
I had, I think, a wonderful and very interesting childhood because even though we lived in Toledo, I grew up in Little Bulgaria. So we had all these Bulgarian traditions, food, language, name days, getting together. And one of the most beautiful thing was that people didn't have telephones. I think I was maybe 9 or 10 when we had a telephone in the house. So you had to make physical contact with people.
Mhm.
You had to get up and walk to their house. And I remember loving all the Bulgarian traditions. I remember someone asking me, not even just one person, I think several people throughout my life saying, well, wasn't it strange having all these Bulgarian people around you? And wasn't it strange with all these accents and things? Or weren't you ever embarrassed? And the question shocked me because
Mhm.
I felt very enriched by having this culture. And when people got together, they sang, they danced, they talked politics, of course. Even growing up, I loved where I was.
You passed that on to us, so it's just such a part of who we are. Like if someone asks me what my heritage is or my culture, Bulgarian is top of mind, right? And then they'll ask like, "How Bulgarian are you?" I'm like, "Okay, like a quarter." I'm like a quarter, but really I'm more like because you even took us, like we got to go to those big dances. And I remember
Yeah.
going to Baba Marika's church and like
Yep.
the funerals and the celebrations. So you really even passed that on to us. And I'm so proud of it.
Oh, that's how I felt as a kid too, and all throughout my life. I just really felt that I was enriched and that people didn't have multiple cultures growing up, that, golly, they were missing out. But my dad also was an uber proud American. And my mom came here, I think I told you girls, with an arranged marriage. Though they exchanged letters, they exchanged pictures. And in 1937, she came over on a boat to marry a man she had never met.
And she didn't get to choose, right?
She did, but her mother strongly encouraged her to go
Okay.
because in that area of Bulgaria she lived in, they were still living like a medieval society where they would have their homes and then walk out to the fields. And then there was a village center where they could all gather and do things. And the Orthodox Church was a big part of that.
Yeah.
And I had a wonderful big brother. He was always there for me. And when girls say, "Oh, I would love to have a big brother," they only wanted to have a big brother if they had mine. And I think that was a big part of it too, because life was very stressful for my parents. They came here with nothing, absolutely nothing. And my dad was older when he had us. He was in his 40s. And he came here with a junior high education, went to night school to learn to read and write English. He knew more American history than any college American history major. But his jobs were tough. He would work at the ore docks. He would work on the shipyards, and sometimes he would get laid off. And those were very, very scary times. And he also got seriously injured on the job twice. And that was scary. It really was. And it was tough for my mother to come here with no language skills or anything. So there was a lot of stress in their lives too. It still was a very rich growing up for me. I thought so even at the time.
Was that something that you think you inherited from Baba Marika and Daru? When you talk about holding the stress of injuries and layoffs and uncertainty, but also at the time feeling so positively about your situation, was that just part of your household makeup, or do you think that's more you?
I think more me. My mom, life was stressful for her, and everyone on the outside thought she was this happy-go-lucky, loving person, which she was. But things were also tough for her too. But she was a terrific, wonderful mother-in-law. Never said one thing against your grandpa. Never said one thing against my sister-in-law. Not one thing. That's a great mother-in-law. It was
Yeah.
total. It was total support.
That's actually, Emily and I have talked about how you and Grandpa have been the example of just being support and not saying anything negative about, marriage or family or the way that you are parenting or that you're in a relationship. Like you two just really have been the example of how to only be supportive.
Oh, I hope so, because you kids are all terrific, and you have to go your own way. And I don't want you to do what I did. You'll do your thing.
I don't think we could recreate it if we tried. Sometimes I do try, and I'm like, oh man.
Oh no, you all are doing great. I absolve myself of all responsibility. It's a good feeling, actually. It really is. To have confidence in your kids to raise their kids, and now you grandchildren to raise your children. It's a good feeling. It really
It's
is.
extreme generational wealth. Yeah. Extreme. I mean, you can figure out how to go after money. You can figure out how to, get after fitness, or you can read books about health, or, what you should be nourishing your body with. But you can't, I mean, you can do the best for your partner and your children and your friends and your circle, but you really have a huge head start when you're not undoing all of the generational baggage that has traumatized you or your parents previously. I mean, there's no replacement for a strong foundation of love and support, I don't think.
I think you're absolutely right, Emily. And I have said so often, I really don't know how anyone functions without the love of support of family and friends. I really don't know how they do. And so many people don't have that, which is why we have always tried, even when we were very, very young, to give back in some way to the community, because we have just been so extraordinarily blessed. We really have been. And it's not because we are these fantastic, wonderful, virtuous people. We've worked hard, but other people have worked hard, and they've just been dumped on. And we really have not. We just have had one blessing after another, after another, after another. Plus, we still like each other after 60 some years. That's a big deal.
Yeah. Yes, agreed. I called you last night and you pick up the phone and I was like, "Oh, Baba, how are you?" "Oh, I'm just trashing Grandpa over here."
Well, they have to keep it spicy. How about when Sadie got engaged and we're at Camp Sisu and we're all holding hands? We're all in, like, little cousins, aunts, uncles, whatever. William was just proposed, and Baba goes, "And I pray for Sadie and William that they have plenty of fights." And we're all thinking, what? So that they have plenty of breakup sex. Or not break, sorry, they have plenty of makeup sex.
I forgot about that.
I forgot about that.
Oh, I sure didn't.
Well, they did have 5 children, Callie.
I can only think of one other instance, and this is really funny that caps that because they're like your dad. Grandpa did lots of hunting, lots of fishing, and there was one fall when he went off with 2 men in the Rocky Mountains. They had horses. They got dropped off in the middle of the mountains, set up a tent for sleeping, another tent for cooking and bathing and that kind of stuff. And 2 weeks later, they were picked up.
Wow.
Well, he was home for 5 days. And then he took off for 2 weeks of fishing. So I thought, I'm not going to stay home. I'm invited to these gatherings, so I'm going to go. So I was talking to our dear friend who was older, who has since passed away, but who was such a fantastic gentleman, Carter Smith. And he was introducing me to something. And they said, "Well, where's your husband?" I said, "Well, he came home 5 days ago for his conjugal rights and took off again." And it just came off the top of my head. And I thought, why am I doing this?
Oh, man.
I've never been truly proper. I'm sorry.
So funny.
Well, and was that something that was valued when you were a girl growing up?
Being proper was highly valued. And I was the rebel because not only were girls' roles clearly defined in the 40s, but Bulgarian girl roles were clearly defined.
Oh.
And so I wasn't supposed to go out and climb trees or swing on the tire swing and do all these things I love to do. And that caused a lot of conflict with my mom because she wanted me to be this sweet, quiet, proper little Bulgarian girl that I just wasn't.
So when you look at your life now versus when you were that little girl, does it look the same as you thought it would look? Did you dream, about where you would be in your 80s?
No, I always have had goals for what we're going to be doing as a couple, goals for me, some things I wanted to learn by a certain age, but they were always loose and flexible because you always get thrown curves. You can only plan so much, and then you get kind of a slap on the wrist that says, "Oh, you really think you have this planned?" Well, don't think so. So I pictured that I guess I never pictured how bewitching and rewarding it would be to have all of you grandchildren be part of our lives and want to be part of our lives. That is a gift beyond measure. It just is. I couldn't have conceived of how wonderful that is because I didn't know. And I'm in a perfect spot. I really am. Grandpa and I still have fun. We laugh together. Even if some health issues come up, we're dealing with it. So truly, I can't complain anything about my life. I just can't. I'm lucky. I'm very, very blessed. Not lucky. It's a blessing. So
When you talk about those goals, even if they're flexible, do you remember what some of them have been?
some of them were learning goals. I had certain parts of history I wanted to learn. And then when I decided to become a docent, but when I was in college, I was a sociology major and a art minor. I started out in the arts and sciences and switched to education. Bad move for me. But anyway, um, I had goals of what I wanted to learn about history. I had goals about what I wanted to learn about art. I wanted to work better on my Bulgarian because my mother was so intent on speaking Bulgarian that she would speak Bulgarian to us, but we weren't expected to speak Bulgarian back. She wanted to speak English back. So I worked on, I can have a conversation, but it isn't as fluid as listening to Bulgarian was no different than listening to English. So goals like that, I think. And then we had travel goals. That's what we got. Have tent will travel. It was wonderful. Pack up the kids and hit the parks, go hiking, hit the mountains. Loved it.
Okay, something that I didn't understand until the last couple years, though. So we grew up camping. We had a lot of friends who grew up camping. That was weird when you were raising kids.
Yes,
Can
it
you,
was.
Callie? Wait,
I never thought of this.
Oh, wait, Baba, tell Callie the lengths you had to go to just take your kids camping for the first time.
Oh yeah, there were no camping stores in town. It was we joined REI probably 55 years ago, and then LL Bean had two catalogs, a winter catalog and a summer catalog. So I had to go through REI and LL Bean to get things. So I called up LL Bean and I said, normally I know I have to send in a check and this is what I want and you'll mail it to me, but I can't get this gear in town. Can I set it in the mail, my check in the mail right now and you can mail it to me? They said, oh, sure.
Wow.
You could not get camping gear in outdoor activities, especially for a female. I I had friends that said, well, when you're backpacking, what do you do when you have to go to the bathroom? or,
Well,
or what do you do if it rains?
So you've been born and raised in Toledo, Ohio. And then you're like, I want to go. Why did you want to go sleep in a tent in the middle of nowhere with your children? Like, why was that even a thought if no one else was doing it?
Well, my dad absolutely loved nature and experiences. They had no money. So they would take us places to have experiences. When my dad came here, he ended up being a waiter at Bear Mountain Inn in New York. So when I was in sixth grade, he took us there. Then he took us to New York City and he took us to Washington, D.C. because we're Americans. You have to see Washington, D.C. We couldn't afford a plane ride. So to go to South Bass Island in Lake Erie from Port Clinton, Ohio, you got on something called the Tin Goose, this tiny little World War II airplane. And you took a 15-minute ride over to the island. And the closest mountains were the Smokies. So he took us to the Smokies. He loved nature and outdoors, and he really passed that on.
Where did you stay when Dadu's taking you all over in the Tin Goose?
They
Like, where do you
at,
sleep?
at those times there are lots of ma and pop, very very cheap places to stay with a bathroom down the hall, and then you always went to the store and had your own food. You did not go out to eat, and so it was very inexpensive to do it that way. And those um, modes of travel for families are gone now. It's like B&Bs have become this elaborate big breakfast thing now instead of an economical thing like they were before.
So I guess I'm connecting now. Baba Marika and Dadu were, I mean, in business terms, you just call them industry disruptors. Like they, I just haven't thought about this. The guts that it takes to choose a complete unknown for yourself, for a new life for you, something that you're going to build on opportunities, but you don't even know what they are. I mean, that was kind of built into their DNA as soon as they made the choice to come over here, I suppose. So then for Dadu to say, well, I'm going to take my kids to the mountains and do all these things, probably societal norms were less constraining to him. I mean, he just saw the thing, did the thing, figured it out.
Oh, absolutely. And he would get maps out, take us all over it. He could. He loved it. And I think that love of travel and nature, he just embedded in me. And I know my brother has it, not quite as badly as I do, but we both have it.
so did Baba Marika ever go with you?
Oh, yeah. She
Okay.
went along. Yeah, she definitely went along. And then after we were gone, they did a lot of traveling through AAA. And
Oh,
they met some couples there that they became very good friends with.
Wow.
They'd go out west. They went to Hawaii. They did all this other stuff, which was really cool. They
Wow.
just finally had the means to do that after my brother and I were gone. It was a wonderful thing. So all the grandkids loved my mom and dad because they were just totally accepted and no favorites. And that's a beautiful thing.
So, you've talked a lot about your dad. When you think of the word matriarch, just going back to Baba, what feelings does that bring up?
Well, my mother was a wonderful, loving person, but for years she wanted to make me into something I was not, and that caused a lot of conflict. It really did. She wanted me to be this very proper, very quiet, she wanted me to be exactly what she wanted me to be instead of what I was. And that was difficult. And even as a very young, by the time I was in high school, I said, if I ever have daughters, I'm not going to do this.
Mm.
So I feel sorry that my mom never let go enough that she could become my friend as an adult and just relax, know that I could do things. It's okay because I have a blast with my girls and my daughter-in-law, your mom. I have such a good time with them. And she never had that opportunity.
Hmm.
And that makes me a little sad for her.
Do you remember when you were a kid the first time you realized that there was friction in what she wanted for you and what you wanted? Or maybe the first time you felt really female in a way that, well, Uncle Donald can climb this tree, but is there a moment that you recall realizing something like that?
It just always seemed to be there. Once I
Mm.
became cognizant of roles, it was an early grade school. Absolutely. Here was this woman who came from a country with no electricity, no indoor plumbing. She comes to the States, didn't know anybody, no language, no anything, except her aunt who had immigrated here. And she has this rebellious daughter. I feel sorry for her.
Yeah, I was gonna say you don't seem to have any bitterness.
No, absolutely not, because she was a wonderful woman. She did the best she could.
Hmm.
And she was so wonderful to everybody. She
Hmm.
really was. So, no, I'm not the least bit bitter at
Hmm.
all. I still had a wonderful childhood. Loved all the Bulgarian dancing, all the traditions. And I think it's like in Tevye when he sings traditions in Fiddler. When I went to see that, when it first opened, when Grandpa was training in New York, I thought, oh, this isn't Russian Jewish. This is Eastern European. It's all about tradition. And your parents have wonderful traditions. I remember that your mom's tradition of opening up the Hummel Nativity set, and you all would feel it to try to guess which figure it was. Hey,
Still
those
do
are
it
lovely.
if we're
Yeah,
around. Yep.
those are wonderful traditions, and everyone looks forward to it.
Baba, this is going back to the beginning of the conversation, just that you and Grandpa have always been so supportive. But I just need to tell you that I remember we were in Woodstock and I was probably 8. So I knew enough to know that mom and dad were going through a rough patch in life. I'm not sure if it was
Mm-hmm.
relationship wise or, like I was 8, but I just knew that mom was having a hard time. And we
Yeah.
were just driving somewhere and you were in the front seat. And I just remember you looking at mom and saying, I just want you to know that you are such a phenomenal wife and mother, and I'm so grateful my son found you. And I just
Oh.
remembered that after all those years, just being like, what? That's not mom's mom. Like, why did she need to say that? That was kind of weird. And now I'm like, oh, that was beautiful.
She's exactly what my son needs. She just is. And she's been a wonderful mother. And how can I not love and appreciate that? And I love being around strong women. She is quietly strong. I'm
Mm-hmm.
obnoxious in your face strong. She is quietly strong.
Just a different kind of matriarch, right?
Well, and we're not matriarchs try to rule things. We're not matriarchs. We're just,
That's
yeah.
curious. That's why we've been asking about that word
Oh, it's
because it's
so
a bit of a
charged.
hot, yeah, it's kind of a controversial word right now. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just interesting to hear the different. Auntie Katie was like, "Well, I just picture a buxom blonde opera singer."
I guess I picture someone who wants to be controlling, and that's not fun.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to control anybody just is not fun.
Mm-hmm. So maybe this is taking it back to multi-generational wealth. I think I heard the other day, we carry the past of 7 generations before us. We carry something from 7 generations back, be it good or bad, which I could believe. Absolutely. I don't know how you test for that or get data.
Yeah, that's something new I'm just hearing about.
Oh, you've heard about this too?
Briefly, yeah.
Yeah, I want to dig in. It was also a brief flitting. I don't remember where I heard it. It was a couple days ago, so I need to dig in because I'm like, how do you track that with data? I'm curious. Anyway, it makes a lot of sense though. I guess my point is when Callie and I think matriarch, if we go back to the women who were active in our lives generationally, we don't really have the controlling or the negative. I mean, you and grandma are so different. But yeah, it's mostly positives, which is great.
That's good.
I don't think you or our aunties or mom have had a positive reaction to that word.
No one's liked it.
No.
So this is a podcast about women, for women, right? Are there examples you can think of when women have really shown up for you in a particular way? And or do you have kind of a unique superpower that you think you show up for other women in a certain way?
I think I went right from high school to the University of Toledo and then went to Germany right away. The army wives were not working outside of their home. It was hard to in Germany, but they were still strong, wonderful women. And I had a miscarriage at 4 months. And the rallying of not only the army wives, the bachelors that knew us, that came to the hospital to see me. So I think strong women love to support. I've at the point in my life that I only want to be around women who are totally accepting of everyone that they see and want to be friends with. And I have friends now that just will call and support and just are wonderful. And I try to do the same thing back. And it's just, even if it's just a phone call or say, I know you're not feeling well, I'm bringing supper over tonight. No, little things that a connection and a physical connection too. And that I know when I was at the Frankfurt hospital after that miscarriage, which was a nasty miscarriage, I didn't know if I'd ever have children again. And I was crying at night and the nurse came over and she just brushed my forehead and hair and touched my arm and rubbed it and said, "You're going to be okay." I have never forgotten that. That healing touch.
Because that would have been your first, right? That was before Dad.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that just reaching out all the time is just so important. And not just living your life, but reaching out, helping other people, being there if they need you, and not judging why they need you. And sometimes that's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of predominant in our society right now. I was thinking about this at the beginning of our conversation as well. I think this generation, we're very much in our feels. Like this is the generation, millennials, where everyone has a therapist, which I think is really healthy in a lot of ways because we ought to be, if that's helping you be a better version of yourself, great, get after it.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, except that
what?
I think I'm going to do a virtual therapist next time. I was at the Nutcracker because I had my children's choir was singing in it this weekend.
You ran into your therapist, huh?
Oh, no, not just ran into her. We're in the lobby. I'm with all of my students who are about to sing. This cute woman comes up to me. I haven't had therapy in a while. She goes, "Hi, can you take my picture?" And I said, "Hi." And then she put it together that was my therapist from like a while back. Said, "Say cheese. Think about all my problems while I'm taking your picture." Okay, sorry.
That's actually one of the good things, though. I think if you need help muddling through some issues and you have a good person, a therapist, no matter who it is, it could be a friend who could be a therapist.
Sure.
Yeah.
But anyone who could help you muddle through is terrific. It doesn't make you weak. It means, hey, help me here.
I'm just circling it back to, we're in our fields, and I think we're also a little more judgmental as a society in a lot of ways. And I'm just I want to go back to your comment where you're talking about showing up for women regardless of why they need it, like not judging the why, not worrying about why they need the support. Just
Right, right.
it's not your business. Your business is to show up. Your business is to be there.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes that's hard.
Yeah.
It's
But
kind of like your kids when they're adults. You bite your tongue so hard you're bleeding. But one thing we haven't touched on that has been a constant since Grandpa and I have been parents is our faith. That has truly been a large part of the way we raise our family. And moving out to the country where we met other people that are strong in faith, it was really a huge support system when when we said to our children, well, I know what so and so is doing, but we really don't think that's a good idea. And then to have other people of faith backing up certain behavior and standards and such, it was such a huge, huge support system. It really was. And I think having that faith background, and even if you met people of other faith, it's okay. It's just that if you have a common ground there to help each other out, it's really been essential for us.
Grandpa was raised Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
You were raised Bulgarian Orthodox.
Except we didn't have a priest till I was in junior high.
Oh.
And my mom said, you will go to church. 4 doors down was a congregational church. So we all would go to the congregational church. And I loved Sunday school. It was all about Bible study. And I loved it. So by the time I was in junior high and we had a Bulgarian priest there all the time, it was hard to go from open Bible study and thinking to this very, very strict formula for religion. So I can still sing the funeral service, all that good stuff. And I love some of the traditions. So I'm a mixture of congregational Bible study, Bulgarian Orthodox, and Catholic. It's all there.
When did you choose Catholicism, though? That's my first question. Second follow-up, it's striking me as really interesting that you go from enjoying the seemingly more philosophical Bible study with the congregational church to saying, wow, the rigidity of this Orthodox practice is difficult for me to, oh, you know what? I'm actually going to go with one of the more formulaic Christian traditions in existence. I'm going to choose that one. It's a really interesting progression.
Well, there was something missing in the congregational church for me. And I had a lot of Catholic friends in high school. And I started going to Mass with some of them. And it just resonated with me. It really did. I think
So this is before Grandpa.
Yes. Well, we were barely dating it. I don't think you can change your religion I couldn't have changed a religion for someone. It had to be something I wanted to do. Yeah, the congregational church was great. It was really good. It was very community oriented, but I needed something more. And I loved the spirituality in the Catholic Mass. Loved the reverence in the Catholic Mass. And that's still something I miss today because it's really not there too much.
But you're also the first to be like, this is a groovy song. We are dancing in the pew.
Yes.
Well, when you're doing gospel, you've got to act like it's gospel music. I'm an anomaly. What can I say?
You are.
Yeah.
There just isn't a strict code. There just is not.
Yeah. Which I want to go back to. There's so many things floating around my brain. So let me just maybe outline them and we can choose one to focus on. I'm thinking about Baba Barika and Dadu. She's a mail order bride who comes here when she's 18, speaking no English.
She was 21. 21
21.
20,
okay.
22, I think.
Okay, so 22 to marry a man 20 some years her senior. And
17.
Okay, so my numbers are all off. But close.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's a lot.
Someone she's never met. She's taking this risk. And then they have this marriage where they do something so beautifully, like no favorite grandchildren. They're just remembered as these loving, supportive people.
Right.
But I know you've said to me, well, they had a different marriage than many do. It was an arranged marriage, essentially. That's part of your experience. And then you choose Grandpa, Uncle Donald's best friend at the time. And both of you are chiefs. I mean, both of you are very strong-willed, stubborn, opinionated, have a thirst for life, a curiosity. I mean, it's very much, I have strong feelings about this being the right thing or this being the move. And then you marry this man, and then you move to Germany immediately for a year, where you're cut off from your family and friends, which you've said is a gift, which I believe. And then somehow, I'm just kind of contextualizing the beginning, because in 2024, as your adult granddaughter, I'm watching you and grandpa be best friends. I mean, you're like an empire builder, right? You've got 5 kids, a ton of grandchildren, great grandchildren, cousins who really enjoy spending time together. I mean, you did well in your careers. Like Baba, you may not have had a traditional professional career, but you've been on so many boards, organizations, docent for years. How did you go about laying that foundation, I suppose, in the beginning, in that year in Germany?
Wow. I don't think we thought about it in Germany. Actually, we married so young. We grew up together. And I think I mentioned to you girls before, the only reason this happened is because I knew Grandpa was going to be gone totally for 2 years. And there would be no connection. You couldn't afford a phone call. This is pre all this communication explosion. And did I really want to have him out of my life for 2 years? So when he proposed, the answer was very easy. The answer was, no, I'm not going to go 2 years without him. And fortunately, he didn't want to go without me for 2
Yeah,
years
had you
either.
talked about it? Like, did you know he was going to propose?
I wasn't quite sure. The first time he proposed was over the phone. And I thought, while he was at boot camp, and I thought, oh, I've got to think about this.
Funny.
So when he called a week later, I said I would. And he came home, and he was home for a week before he went to Germany. He talked to my dad and said, I'd like permission to marry your daughter. My dad said, I'll think about it. He died still thinking about it.
And we were alive when he died. I just want to throw that out there.
Yep.
He died semi-recently in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, he died in 1998, and he was born in 1899.
Wow.
Yeah. I just feel like I've had, like I said, we plan things. I work best under a flexible system and not real rigid. But society also unintentionally, or maybe intentionally, it kind of you absorb some of the traditions and things of society too, whether you want to or not.
Sure.
And then you either accept or reject some of them. Certainly, the role of women has changed dramatically, and a lot of it's good, but I think some of it is not so good. I think the role of being a mother has been highly diminished, and I think the idea that if someone stays home and chooses to stay home, if they can absolutely afford it, that somehow she is not intellectually challenged or growing as a person. And I think that's absolutely wrong.
Are there other areas, you just said you think the role of mother is diminished? Are there other areas of motherhood that you think have been diminished besides the intellect or the personal growth if you choose to stay at home?
I think the idea of a mother choosing to go back to a full-time career at 2 months and putting a tiny baby in daycare every day, all day, saddens me, because that baby the mother is the one who gives birth. They need a mother and a father, but as a newborn, the baby needs to feel that mother, that needs to be held. And in daycare, who's going to walk around holding a baby for 6 hours if they want to be held? And I think that's rather sad. I think sometimes society has given the impression that you can have a full-blown career, a full-blown marriage, and a newborn baby all at the same time, and nothing has to give.
I
And I
thought
don't
that.
think,
Yeah, I was
yeah,
going to say, I
I
don't
thought
even
that for
think it's
sure.
that you can have it. I almost think society says that you should have that.
yes,
Yes.
Callie, you are absolutely right. And I don't think only a Wonder Woman can do all that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's impossible. And women are the ones who give birth.
I tried. I tried for 2 years to do that. And I had a lot of help from Kevin's mom, but man, I
Hmm.
tried and it was hard.
It's tough.
Well, and do
It's tough.
you, I had 7 years of marriage with Kyle where I felt like we just had it made. And we did. We were so lucky, but we really just had to pour into each other and pour into ourselves. So like what were we interested in? Which part of our community should be showing up for as a couple or individually? So our marriage, we could do whatever we could pour into, in our careers we could pour into. And seeing a lot of women around me who added a career to that, or sorry, added a baby to that. And I do think being in this experience is a myth that you can have all three all at once. I think there's trade-off and there can be different seasons.
Absolutely. And I think once you have a child, that child has to have a high priority because kids take, and it's a job. It's still a job. Take you girls know now the incredible amount of time, energy, and emotion, physically and mentally, it takes.
Mm-hmm.
It really does.
I guess let me back up 1 second though. I guess I said it's a myth, and there are women around me who are attaining all three all at once, and I truly believe they are. So I guess I want to reframe what I just said to put it in my own perspective, which is I couldn't keep my relationship to myself well while working full time, pouring into my marriage, pouring into my baby.
I don't think
I
many
don't
people
know.
can. And maybe those who do can afford an incredible nanny like
Yes.
Yeah.
Sadie.
Right.
Is it
Yes.
really? Or
Yes.
a relative who steps in. But
And that was part of the only reason I could is that Kevin's mom did 3 days a week. And
yes,
we
and that
did
was a big
daycare
deal.
2 days a week.
Yep.
But yeah, I know some, very wealthy moms that can have an amazing nanny and they're in the same house as their child and they can
Hmm.
still that's
Yeah.
probably a different situation, but I did find in my 2 years that on paper I could make it all work. But yeah, emotionally, I mean, I was a robot, I think,
Yeah.
at a certain point.
Yeah. I
I
love that there's a time and season for everything. Sometimes something has to take the back burner, and it's okay.
I wonder, Callie, if you just did an experiment and clocked all of the hours that you actually worked throughout the week. I wonder if you would get close to 40 with all of your different,
Right now.
yeah, all your different part-time
Oh,
gigs. And the only reason I'm
Yeah.
bringing this up is because I think in the last year you felt really empowered to take what is interesting and good for you and fit it into your life where it can fit. So I wonder if
that's
part of the
true.
conversation is, how do we just kind of finagle everything into its own little spot if we want to hold all of these things all at once. And
Yeah.
maybe a traditional 9 to 5 is kind of difficult. I'm just
Is
curious.
I
I
think
just want to know how
BS.
much
It's
you're working.
BS for moms. I'm just gonna say that in front of my baba.
we know you said something important, Emily. You said where she can fit it.
Yeah.
And if Callie has the flexibility to fit it where it's good for her and Kevin and the children, that's a big deal.
I mean, I
That's
was
a
leaving.
huge deal.
I was a little late to this podcast because I was in this meeting with this woman that is just adding a lot of richness to my life because she's hired me to do a job that is not a ton of time, but that I can do really well. And
Hmm.
we just had this lunch date to try to like brainstorm for the next semester. And I just left it feeling so blessed because she's a mom and she knows that
Hmm.
I'm a mom and she wants me in all my mom glory. And that's all my employers right now. Just understand that. And it's just so different. And I still have Kevin's mom helping with childcare. So it's such an incredibly different experience than working for a public school. So yeah, Emily, you're right. I probably do work a ton of hours right now, but it's where I can fit it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's still more than maybe I want by a little bit, but it's so different. I do feel. I mean, look at my blazer. Feeling very empowered today.
You do look official.
It's cotton. It's like a sweater material. I'd like to clarify. No structure here.
Wait, okay, Baba.
Yes.
I feel like there's so many pieces of you that kind of surface over the years. Auntie Katie was talking about you being a warrior a while ago, and she had a memory as a child of you knocking on doors just to make sure people were aware of some political or like
Oh, yeah.
initiative. So anyway, I just want to bring it back to you're advocating for moms being available to their children, which you were 5 kids, but you also have done so many things outside your home.
She's talking about when Grandpa, we moved back to Toledo. Your dad was just turned 4. Auntie Katie just turned 2. And then we had Auntie Megan, but he was working crazy, crazy hours. So when we first moved back, I did teach full time for 1 year. I really did not like someone else, a stranger, with the kids all the time. And we both made the decision that I was going to quit and stay home with the kids. And, our life, we were going to be extremely frugal because we just thought it was best. But then at one point, I worked for, it was called the Environmental Clearinghouse. And this is when the Clean Water Act was passed, the Clean Air Act was being passed. The word ecology was brand new on people's lips. The idea of recycling was brand new on people's lips. So I did go, there was something that they wanted to enhance with the Clean Water Act. So I went around the neighborhood with a petition. And I also went around with my little red wagon collecting newspaper to take to a recycling center. And there was only one in town. So it was all piled in our garage. There was a 4th of July storm to end all 4th of July storms. And the storm sewers backed up. Not only did the family room get wet, picture piles of wet, soggy newspaper. And that's when Grandpa said, I really don't want you collecting newspaper anymore.
Did he say it just like that in dulcet tones?
Oh, absolutely.
So, how did you prioritize getting out of the house and doing things for yourself? Because you have such a strong sense of self and your own identity. I recognize I met you when you were in your 50s, but how did you grow that and maintain that while having 5 kids, while helping Grandpa with a super demanding career?
Well, it was easier because there were more mothers who were staying home. We exchanged children. If
See, it's
someone
that
wanted to,
village. We're learning. Okay.
yeah, if someone, like when I decided that I always loved art and history, okay, when I found out you had a year's training of history as a docent and then more training every month you had 2 hours of fantastic classes. I had to go to the museum 3 times a week for training for a year. And I exchanged with another mom who wanted to do something. So I watched her kids, and then she watched my kids when we were doing it. And so you didn't have to pay for a babysitter. And you could still get outside of the house and outside of the role of being a mother and a wife and do something worthwhile. But it was much, much easier then because there were more mothers choosing to do the same thing.
Do you recall how you made that agreement with that mother? Do you recall how you found her?
Mothers would get together. There were things, mothers would have coffees. Every few months, a mother would call a bunch of friends and say, come on over with the kids, I'm having a coffee. You would talk about child rearing problems. If someone was sick, well, what did you do when they had whooping cough or what you did? There was this network of support within the motherhood community that probably isn't there too much anymore. I don't know. I don't know if you girls have found it or not, but it was there when I had children. And that made a big difference.
Kel's working on hers. I
Yeah,
need
I
to
would say
put
I'm
forth a little
just
effort.
well, but I found I'm just finding my kind of tribe in my village, and it's funny. Like right before this, I had text coming in over my AirPods because one of my good friends and I are becoming friends with this other mom, and we have this group chat. And my one friend Emily said, "Hey, I'll just come over. I'm going to stop by, but I'll just help you make dinner." And this other mom we're becoming friends with was like, "Wait, help me make dinner for my family?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm learning this just like what we got to do to hang out right now." So, but that's new, and it's so fun to be like finding that. But I will say I'm the only working mom for the most part in my friend group,
Mm-hmm.
which they're being really supportive and amazing. But if we were all working, it would be really hard because they're often the initiators.
Mm-hmm. But it's nice to have that support from other moms and women. It just is. And I'm glad you're finding some of that.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too.
And when Uncle Sean was in school full time, I thought I'd go back to work. There was a job that opened up at the museum as the volunteer coordinator, and I really enjoyed that. And I did it for several years. It was fun. It was a lot of work, but it was fun because I also was still doing tours. We had a huge Rubens exhibit, and I had to recruit and train and place volunteers. So it was crazy hours for a while, but it was challenging and stimulating and fun and exciting.
And
And I
you
was glad I could do that.
did you plan the international tours too?
I planned several for the docents. Yes, we went to Paris first. We went to Spain, and then I used a tour agency for Egypt and Italy. But the other two I planned, and it was fun.
That travel goal, you really
Yeah.
you animated it. Mom doesn't say it killed, she says you animated it. But it's so funny because you and Emily both use that goal word a lot. And I'm sitting here just thinking, did Emily learn that from Emily, did you learn that from Baba? Or
I
from
don't
Dad?
I don't think so.
No, I only heard about Baba having personal goals when we were a couple weekends ago when we were visiting.
Oh,
and you said that you made goals, loose goals.
Yeah.
yeah.
And Callie, you've brought up goals recently too, being like, well, how do you set? And
Just asking because I don't think of that word. Like, I guess I have this structure of how I hope that life will happen, or like how do I tackle this next thing, but I'm not a good dreamer goal setter like that, and I think you two really are. So I'm literally in this computer, I'm sitting in the middle of you two right now, just like, all right, goals, I'm gonna take it all in.
Well, I think in a previous episode we established that I'm a little bit more needy than you. So I think I just see a thing, I get thirsty, I say, I want that. How do I get it? Let's talk about it. Hey, Kyle, I want this thing. Oh, you want that thing too? Great. Or, oh, you want a different thing? Sick. Or, oh, you don't want that at all. Well, this is a good conversation. It's not like, oh, let's set some goals. It's just like, are we aligned to putting our energies towards this thing? And just, for a little self-validation, Baba, you set a goal to travel. How many countries have you and Grandpa visited together at this point?
Over 30.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think you're I think you did that one. I think you could cross.
Well, the last one, what was the last one?
Was it
when
Vietnam?
we went to Scotland.
Oh.
We spent 3 weeks in Scotland. Loved Scotland. Really did.
Can't
it was
wait.
fun. And fortunately, we both like to travel. I don't want to do it in a tent anymore at all. And that's okay.
Wait, Baba, real question. I read a lot of romance novels when I'm postpartum. A lot of them have very sexy Scottish Highlanders. Is the vibe there?
They do look really cute in kilts. They really do.
Perfect, I'm there.
They actually look manly in kilts. I don't get it, but they do.
So are there ever goals that you and Grandpa don't align on, where one of you says, I'd like this, and the other one says, absolutely, that sounds like the worst thing I could think of?
Only minor things. We've been very fortunate that when it comes to children or it comes to travel, the important things were there. And we had the same type of ideas. And that was really helpful. Even when it comes to how we want the house to look, we want it to be comfortable and open and airy and color. I have to have color. Minor thing.
Do you remember any big negotiations you guys had in the beginning? Like, think back to Germany years. Were there any big things where you had to sit down and say, all right, we are not aligned. Let's do some work here?
It was probably after we came back because Grandpa was gone about half the time defending the border between East and West Germany. And I didn't know where he was half the time. I'd go off and teach in the next village, and I had good German friends I'd spend the weekends with. So we really didn't have time to. When I had that very awful miscarriage, he was just there for me. It was the most wonderful thing to have that and to know he would be there no matter what. And that's a big thing, to know your partner is there and will always be there for you. That is just a very big deal. And I think the best thing you can give children is a happy marriage, a good, strong marriage with love and respect. And that is the very best gift for children.
Mom has said that dad had to teach her to put their marriage ahead of our needs, the kids' needs.
Mm-hmm.
Was that something you and Grandpa learned together or intentionally did, or did it just work out that way?
We just always felt that we had to have some time alone together, whether it was even if it was just walking in the park. We needed to have time as a couple to really have a marriage and have children. And I'm glad we did because we've always had fun together. And like you said, we're two chiefs. There are times when we argued and got into differences because we're two strong-minded people. And
Uh-oh. We lost you. Hold
that
on.
that was Auntie
Is
Katie
everything
that time.
okay?
That was Auntie Katie.
Here, I'm going to text him quick. Baba's recording. Is it an
Baba's
emergency?
busy.
Oh, that's just an example. And you girls have the same relationship with your mom. It's so much fun just to be friends and let go of the reins and assume your kids are going to do a good job. That's just a good feeling. It really is.
I hope for that feeling. It's the goal. That's the goal.
You'll have it. I have no doubt in my mind you kids will do it. And you have two husbands who are wonderful for you. And that's a big deal. It just
They're
is.
pretty great.
The marriage is important.
So, when do you feel beautiful or valued as a woman?
When do I feel beautiful or valued as a woman? Goodness, I don't know.
That
I'm
seems
trying
to
to
be a
think.
hard one to answer.
Well, I will tell you a funny story that's in conjunction with that. When Grandpa was managing his office, we had a lot of obligatory things we had to do because his office was representing whatever. A lot of them were black tie events, and I would get all dressed up. And I'd come down, and your grandpa would say, "Oh, you look nice." Finally, your Uncle Sean, who might have been 15 or 16 at the time, said, "Dad, that doesn't work." He just verbally gave your grandpa, a list of adjectives. None of them were nice.
That's incredible.
He
Isn't that funny?
is something else. Uncle Sean,
Good
always such a
job.
charmer.
I guess
Um,
I've always felt good about being a woman, and I think I've seen so many social changes going on, and when you think American women haven't even had the right to vote for 100 years, things keep changing. But I love that I was a woman who could produce life. That to me is a miracle and wonderful. And if I take care of myself, and fortunately I love to exercise, if I take care of myself and I feel good about myself, I feel good about myself as a woman and how I look. But you've got to take that time to take care of your body too. Fit it all in.
so
I have a good life. I just do.
I was going through pictures I was going through some old ones that Grandma just sent, and there was a
Mm-hmm.
picture of me as a baby being baptized
Mm-hmm.
with Mom and Dad who look like children.
Yeah.
And I was just looking at you and Grandpa, and I looked at you and I was like, she looks like how old my friends look right now.
Not quite.
Well, Emily has some older friends than you are.
Well, how old were you when I was born?
In my 50s.
I
Yeah.
don't know. You and Grandpa were dressed, and I was just like, those are they're not old enough. Who let those people be grandparents?
I do think that being raised in that Bulgarian community, I have a different vision of age because people
Mm.
didn't die till they were in their 90s. So to me,
Wow.
age is how you think. And
Yeah.
I, I think some people start acting old when they're 50. So by the time they're 80, they really have it down pat.
Do you mean people didn't die in their 90s on the east side of Toledo?
No,
Where you part of,
Bulgarians. I
or
was
you're talking about like in Bulgaria?
in the Bulgarians who immigrated to the States that were in the Bulgarian community died in their 90s. So
Wow.
my vision and feeling about age was very different than the typical American's picture of what age was like. And my dad was one of the oldest parents, but he's the one who went ice skating with us. He's the one who went sledding. So, it's all what you make about age. So what's really, really funny is when your mom and dad got married, I'm sorry, when you got married and I met your in-laws, I'm thinking, oh, they're our contemporaries. Same thing with Callie's. And I thought, wait a minute, no, they're not our contemporaries. I could be their parent. but you feel like a contemporary. You don't feel like this older person.
That's funny. That
It
is
is
really
very
funny.
funny.
Oh
It
my
really
gosh.
is.
I love it.
Well,
Well,
Dadu was almost 100 when he died.
Yeah.
I have I was 6 when he passed away. I remember his energy more than anything else.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He was a wreck. In fact, Max, who lives with us now, I was telling her that when my dad was in his mid-70s, he would show off to my kids how he could do push-ups. He'd go in the family and do it in between each push-up. He would clap his hands.
in his 70s.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, you do have a picture of him in your house. He's in a tank leaning up against a car.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
he's got some guns. So if you've got print evidence of that, you're going to want to try and maintain that physique. I mean, he was a beautiful man. He's my great grandfather.
He was. Oh, he was. He was very. There's a Bulgarian word when you really want to get yourself all dressed up and spend a lot of time on how you look. It's called kutsi kutsi.
What is it?
Kutsi kutsi.
Kutsi kutsi. How have I never heard this from
I'm
you
going to teach
before?
Kyle this word. Yeah, Emily's over there just doing her kutsi kutsi.
Isn't that a good word?
It's so good.
So my dad would he'd like to always look good and neat and pressed and clean and all that stuff. Even working at the Ordox, it was just very cute and very funny. Yeah.
Emily, I'm going to ask our closing question soon. So do you have any? I'm the one that edits Baba, so I'm learning to try to keep things efficient for my sanity.
That's
But
a big
Emily,
job.
yes, it is. It is.
Yeah.
Hence why I'm warning Emily, if there's anything else that she wants to get in, this is your time.
You know what? I think that I'd like to ask for a follow-up interview where we just dive into Baba's relationship with Bulgaria and travel.
I love that.
And food and tradition. So maybe I'll save it. And Baba, can we invite you back prematurely to talk about those things?
Oh, sure. Because I loved it. I really did. And Auntie Katie was in a dance group, and I made costumes for Auntie Negan and Auntie Lisa, which I still have. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
A Bulgarian dance group? So for our listeners, whenever an O'Leary girl gets married, still in our generation, there is Bulgarian dancing at the wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And the music is just wild and wonderful. Really is. You cannot sit still when you hear the music. So without television, there were all these name day gatherings were a big deal. People would get together and they would sing and they would dance and they would tell stories. And we would ask my mother to tell stories about Stadakrai, the old country. And she would tell us what things were like when she was growing up.
Was she one of the more recent immigrants?
Yes, because things shut down. She came in 1937.
Right. Okay.
Then after that, you couldn't get out of Bulgaria. And even getting in Bulgaria after that was difficult. Yeah, she was very fortunate. She was one of the last ones.
Spoiler for our next episode with Baba, which is going to happen. Callie, I learned this. Grandpa had top secret clearance when he was in the army in Germany because he was a commander of
howitzer group.
So he was involved with nukes. He was in protecting the border, which I just learned. So anyways, the first time that Baba went to Bulgaria, he was told by his superiors to try and dissuade her based on top secret information. So we're gonna just let that dangle right there. Before we go into our next episode with Baba, where we talk about, I want to know about that first visit, how communism kind of affected Bulgaria, what you saw when you visited next, and all of the traditions that you maintained with your family in America.
And I could finally meet my own Baba,
Wow.
which my younger cousin said, I am like her. So.
Oh my gosh. That is so cool.
Yeah, it really is. I am just so proud of you girls for doing this. Reaching out. This is a way of reaching out to other moms.
It is.
Well, and we just realized we just have so much generational wealth that, I mean, we're just blessed to have you and our aunties and our other grandma. I mean, we just have so many women to learn from. Mm-hmm. It's just the best.
And strong women are just wonderful to be around. They just are.
Baba, what is a trait about yourself that is aging like fine wine?
That is aging like fine wine. Golly. I guess I'm learning to keep my mouth shut a little bit more. That I can just sit back and listen a little bit more, especially when and it's a lot of these social issues that come up and such, and some of the political things. Sometimes it's better just to back down a little bit, which is really hard for me to do. But sometimes it's better.
I have J.D. Vance's book on my nightstand, Baba. I'm about to start
Good.
it because we talked about it.
Yes.
I'm curious.
Have you read it?
I read it when it first came out, way before he ever got into politics. And it's a pretty amazing story. It really is.
We were talking about it last time I was visiting, which is why I brought it up.
Got it.
Yep. We have all this extended family to wrap around, which is just a gift that I wish everyone had. It's a wonderful
I've had
thing.
so many comments of acquaintances or good friends that have listened and said, like, wow, I can't believe how close you are and just how much familial loyalty there is. It's amazing.
Oh, and you kids staying there after Thanksgiving was the best present I ever could have had. It really was.
So fun.
Well, we had all you girls together in one spot, and it was just so much fun. And I just had a fun memory today because I just wiped the last of the fingerprints off the sliding door.
Not ours. I want to be clear. Our children. We have learned.
Truth.
I have learned that at home and at camp when little kids are around, you just wait till they go and then you just clean it off.
We love you. Thank you, Baba.
So much.
Wonderful, girls. It really was.
Thanks.
Say bye, my darlings.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Baba.
You've been listening to The Real Mom Hub. Our music is by Naomi O'Leary. You can find us on social at The Real Mom Hub. We're not the authority or even very educated on the medical issues discussed. Do your own research, talk to an expert, make your own decisions, and call us if you learn anything new.
If you like what you hear, follow us on Instagram, or better yet, subscribe to our newsletter. If you don't, that's fine. We can all move on. Our purpose here is community, so if we've resonated with you, tell a friend.
Thanks for listening.